Why is it that your mind jumps to worst case scenarios even when nothing bad has actually happened? Well, by the end of this video, you will understand why that happens, where those thought patterns come from, and the first step to changing them. Plus, I'm going to share a simple test that you can use your next time or the next time that your brain goes into doom spiral mode to find out if what you're thinking is actually true. So, what does it mean to assume the worst? Well, a classic example of this is when this often happens is that when someone doesn't return a text message or doesn't reply to your text message or email straight away. Right, so your brain jumps to this conclusion that they're perhaps angry with you or annoyed with you, or you imagine 10 different reasons why they haven't responded. Usually, 9 of these in your mind end up that they're angry at you or that you've done something wrong, right? That's probably sounding quite familiar. It's happened to all of us. What that is catastrophizing, right? We are catastrophizing the situation. It's your brain trying to protect you by preparing you for disappointment, right? The worst case scenario. But it's not just an emotional drama that you're making up. This is actually a deeply wired process of the brain. It's how your brain has been wired to work because we know that it's usually fine. You know, it's usually the case that person isn't angry with us. They were just in the middle of something at the time that we messaged them. Maybe they were at the movies and their phone was off. It could be any number of reasons, but your brain jumps to this conclusion. Why? Because it's frustrating, isn't it? And the reason is because it's your brain's job to protect you, right? It's not its job to please you. That might sound counterintuitive, but it's true. It's how the brain was developed. It's not wired to make you happy. It's not even wired to make you feel satisfied. It is wired for survival. And this goes back to the beginning of time, really, our primal brain. You know, you have what's called a fast system. This is often called the survival brain, that it's designed to detect potential threats to you before you have time to think, because we know these things just happen like that. You know, it's reactive, it's emotional, it's lightning fast. It's almost like a crocodile who sees its prey and just grabs it without thinking. You know, it doesn't wait for the full story. It just goes, something feels off here. I need to prepare you for the worst. You know, get ready to defend yourself, which is the fight. Get ready to run, which is the flight, or get ready to shut down, that's freeze, or get ready to appease, that is fawn. So, of course, we're talking about the fight, flight, freeze, fawn response here. Now, this is helpful, of course, if you are in actual danger, like we used to be way back at the beginning of time, like if a lion is chasing you, for example. But in everyday life, your brain is using that same system to assess an unanswered email or an unanswered text, you know, a delayed response from a friend, or even a change in tone from a colleague at work. So when your nervous system is dysregulated like this, whether it's from chronic stress or past trauma, or perhaps you're just mentally overloaded and this is creating a dysregulation, this reaction happens more often, right? Your brain starts seeing problems where there might not be any, just in case, because it's trying to protect you. And in fact, cognitive science research tells us that when we're faced with uncertainty, which we are faced with so much of that right now, the brain defaults to threat-based pattern recognition. So it would rather be wrong and safe than be right and vulnerable. So just think about that for a moment. Your brain would rather be wrong and safe than right and vulnerable. So what's happening is that your brain is overreacting because it's working off old protective scripts, if you like, a script that has been written a long, long time ago. And during this time, your brain or your unconscious mind starts filling in all of the blanks, right? So here's a way to picture it. Your unconscious mind is like a massive library. Okay, there are thousands of volumes on the shelves, lots and lots of books, and every time something happens, every time you experience something, your brain quickly scans the shelves and pulls out a book, right, that it's read before. So everything you've experienced becomes a book, and then when you experience something again, your brain scans all of those and picks out a book that it's read before, something that looks similar. And that book might be a memory from when you felt excluded at school. It could be when someone unexpectedly lashed out at you, and the brain goes, "Oh, I've seen this before. This is that thing." And it makes this assumption and therefore tells you to react in a certain way. Except it's not. It's not the same. And the brain doesn't stop to fact check. We just make these assumptions. It doesn't stop to check if it's the same context, if exactly the same thing is happening. It just goes with what feels familiar because your brain loves familiarity. It loves things to be the same because it knows the outcome, and it will always do what it did yesterday rather than something new today because it knows the outcome, right? Even if it's a little bit uncomfortable or the outcome isn't exactly what you wanted, it's safe because it knows what will happen, all right? It knows that you survived, which is your brain doing its job, keeping you alive. And here's a part that catches a lot of people off guard. Your thoughts aren't always rational, right? But they feel real because they match your emotional experience. You might feel rejected, but that doesn't mean that you are being rejected. Right? That's just the brain making the assumption. And in those moments, your brain is just trying to offer you certainty. Even if it's a painful moment or it's a little bit uncomfortable, certainty feels safer than confusion or doubt. So, what to do instead? Here's a practical shift that you can try next time your brain offers you a worst case scenario, right? Ask, what else could be true? So, this question does three things. Number one, it slows the survival brain. It actually gives it time to think about something different, right? Number two, it reminds you that thoughts are possibilities, not predictions. So there's all sorts of possibilities. That is what our thoughts are. Each and every one is a possibility. They're not actually predictions of what will happen. We don't know what will happen. And the third thing that it does is that it opens the door to alternative outcomes. So instead of just going with that initial thought and acting on that, we now have some choices. Right? So even if you don't fully believe those other options yet, just creating space for them helps retrain your thinking. And the goal here isn't to eliminate negative thoughts. We're always going to have these thoughts pop into our mind. Again, it's what our brain does. But the goal is to stop following them like they're gospel truth, right? To train your brain to do something more productive, more useful. So if this kind of pattern shows up for you often, if you're listening to this thinking, yes, I'm very familiar with this, I have something for you. I want you to grab the free PDF that I've made. It's called the 5-Minute Conscious Brain Method. It gives you a simple tool to redirect your thoughts without needing to meditate or journal for hours on end or pretend everything's fine either. right? All it takes to get started is 5 minutes, and everyone can find 5 minutes. All right, so there's a link in the description. Thanks for watching today. And remember, when you change your mind, you change your life. See you next time.